Another criticism that DeFi has is that it's basically replicating what is already out there in TradFi, but just, putting it on chain. And that's not like true innovation, and we're basically converging to the same thing. So what do you think about that? And I think it will be, if you disagree with that, which you probably do you have examples of like exciting, interesting mechanisms that are completely unique for DeFi and are kind of changing the whole picture?
Yeah, laundry list. Tokenization of future yield, speculation on future yield. You can have zero interest loan. You can have fixed interest loan, trading of interest rate, tokenization of NFT into Vault, borrowing against essentially a non-fungible assets. You have tons and tons. We can keep going. Essentially, this was kind of true for the early DeFi, but even the very act of liquidity providing. Essentially, the activity exists in regular finance, but it's completely different beast. It's not how you go on, TradFi, Uniswap, and you put your tokens together. It's you need to be a market maker. You need to have some accreditation and so on. And it's restricted to a very little crowd. Versus in DeFi, essentially anyone with $2 in their wallet can go on Uniswap and start helping. And it's a pattern we see a lot in DeFi. Back when we created DeFi Friends 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking about essentially how DeFi is giving everybody access to the finance of billionaires. Or if you have $1 billion in the bank, or if you have 1,000 in the bank, you don't have access to the same kind of services. You don't have the same terms with your bank. And the beauty of DeFi is that it's all open protocols. So essentially, anyone has access to the same tools. It doesn't matter whether you're placing, $100 in there or $1 billion in there. So I think just this virtual alone is already a big thing. There are tons of use cases that are already unique.
Yeah, I think it's complete nonsense that there's nothing new about DeFi. I mean, in some sense, of course, we're just going to recreate what already exists in TradFi. Like there's zero coupon bonds or options that you want to exchange things. These are activities that have been taking place for as long as humans have been exchanging goods and services with one another. Collateralizing assets and so on. So you're never going to get completely new, like never seen before types of ways to exchange value. Those things already exist, and it's about how you actually implement the exchange of value. So. But to the extent that that's true, DeFi is extremely innovative, and I think one of the big benefits is the composability of things, the ability to link together two very different types of ways to exchange value in a single atomic transaction. I think is extremely beautiful thing to do. When you look at people building leverage on chain, they're often linking together 4 or 5 different protocols in order to deposit something as collateral, borrow something, swap it, redeposit, loop, and leverage the position. That kind of thing. In TradFi, you need to build like several different companies, but with several different regulatory agencies. Actually building a company like that and getting it regulated would take probably a decade and cost tens of millions at least. Whereas actually anybody can do it with protocols like Euler and Uniswap and others. You can actually build this stuff, very, very quickly. So the pace of innovation and the ability to offer a new product to the market if there's demand for it is just, much, much quicker in DeFi. It's also much cheaper to transact on chain than it is often off chain as well. If I was to give like one innovation that you just simply can't do in TradFi, I think would be flash loans. I talked about this earlier today with somebody. Flash loan traditionally, if there's an arbitrage opportunity in TradFi that's on the order of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, very few people can actually process that arbitrage. You're looking at a company with a massive book of assets which they can take advantage, and probably a very few number of entities and banks in the world can actually process that. Whereas on chain, a flash loan, you can borrow as much money as you like, and you can process the arbitrage and then repay that transaction. And it's all completely free. Anybody can do it as long as it happens within, with a single atomic transaction. And what that means, those open markets mean that we actually have a much more efficient markets in DeFi than we do in TradFi.
Yeah, I think, the main points were covered. So it's democratizing access to sophisticated financial instruments and strategies, right? Like you can play the different borrowing rates between dollar and euro without needing to open up several accounts and be registered with multiple banks and move like hundreds of thousands of dollars as a simple example. And generally that also helps on the composability, helps on the removing intermediates. Let's go with that, right? Like giving some examples that are, part of it is in traditional finance, but part of it is in other industries as well. Because DeFi is not just, oh, I'm gonna like replicate lending. Like basically DeFi is programmatic money, right? So you can apply that to many different industries. If you take advertising, for example, like you can actually transparently manage cookies and impressions on chain, and you wouldn't have like 17 entities checking whether the data is correct, because like literally anyone can do this sometimes, right? And like some of that is, yes, computationally heavy, so you don't put it on chain, but like generally having that network allows us to disrupt the financial flows and the value flows in a lot of industries, and all of that is DeFi.
Yeah, just to that last point, I think the transparency like is immeasurably better in DeFi. Actually, it's funny when you hear like people outside the industry talk about how it sometimes have this impression, created by the media that it's shady and kind of murky business. It's way more transparent than anything that happens in TradFi, and I think that makes it more efficient because anybody can check the chain, and lots of people do check the chain all the time. So you want to know whether Aave like behaving, like you just go and check. Like there's no question whether it is or not, and whether you like the rules or you don't. The rules are very, very clear and transparent. So.
Yeah, something to add here about transparency. Like, yes, it's great that you see that it's transparent and all that. One of the challenges, though, is that in TradFi, because it's not transparent, if there is something fishy going on, you don't see it. While in DeFi, everybody sees it and then everybody talks about it. So in the eyes of the media, it seems like there is so much like shady stuff going like in crypto and in DeFi, while in TradFi, maybe from time to time there is somebody getting sued, or fined for millions of dollars, but it's not actually clear what is the amount of bad activity happening. So the transparency could be like a double-edged sword, actually.